All right, today's clip, I got another spicy take from Jeff Booth, revisiting that one-liner he dropped about inflation being the greatest lie ever told, and it actually ties together with a monetary policy meeting with Jerome Powell back in March 2023, so just over 2 years ago, where, and I never realized this, but getting unplugged from the matrix, now you can see it so much clearer, but how this 2% narrative is just being pushed around. And Senator Masto actually asked him about that, and the response he gives is insane. So stay tuned.
Watching Bitcoin climb higher feels like watching a train leave without you, but it's not too late. At Drip2BTC, you can grow your Bitcoin like never before. Earn up to 3,000% APR on credit conversions and discounts on Bitcoin purchases. Step 1, buy Bitcoin. Step 2, deposit it. Step 3, let your wallet do the work. Don't miss this chance to change your life. Start today at Drip2BTC.com.
Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here with Drip and Farm for Poverty, where we don't trust, we verify, and operate with integrity and transparency. So again, I'm gonna play these two different clips, and you really have to listen to the words, one, that Jeff Booth is saying, and then what Jerome Powell is saying. And I'm sure these were similar words from previous Fed chairs in the past. Like, we have been trapped in this fiat slavery system for so long, it has become our reality. And Jeff just keeps trying to hammer this into our heads that this is not the way it's supposed to work. This is a artificially created system for control. So I want you to listen to Jeff explain inflation first and what that actually means if you accept that.
Inflation, it might be the greatest lie ever told. If you believe that inflation is good for you, like, why do you believe that? And people will say, well, like you did, the free market can't work, right? Because debt is needed. Well, that's not true. And you keep on going, why? Because what you're really saying, if you believe that, is I believe for humans to trade with each other, that there has to be theft in money, that my money has to be worth less over time. And somebody has to be able to make decisions to make my money worth less over time for me to trade with other people on this planet. Inflation, it might,
like, let that sink in, because that is exactly the narrative that we have been told. And like you said, when you ask yourself why, and you kind of go down the first principles, it's like, well, why is inflation necessary? How does it actually work and make my life better? And inflation is just stealing your time and energy. Like, there's no other way around it. So like he said, in order for that to work, then you have to believe that in order for you to have life, abundance, items, purchase goods, services, exchange your goods and services for monetary energy from others, someone has to control that and steal a portion of it from you. Like, that's what you're telling yourself. In order for you to exist in the system, someone else has to steal and borrow from you. And that's the only way it works. Like, that makes absolutely no sense. Now, let's listen to Jerome Powell explain why 2% inflation is necessary. You will not believe his response.
I do think that I said all.
Oops, a little too fast. Slow this down a bit. They were talking about housing in Nevada, but there's going to be a specific quote about 2% inflation being a target.
My colleagues and I have too, that we believe that we can, there's a path to restoring 2% inflation with less significant effects on the labor market than have typically been seen in downturns.
And for purposes of the general public, people, Nevadans that I know that are struggling, we have one of the highest, we've talked about this, and thank you for always being willing to talk with me. We have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. Our service sector was hit so hard. We're still at over 5% just in Southern Nevada. We have high gas prices. We have grocery prices. We have housing prices that are high. So one of the things that you have commented on, and you just did again, but I know it was in your opening remarks, that, and it's quoted right here, and let me just say, our overarching focus is using our tools to bring inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. For the general public, for those working families of people, why 2%? Why is getting it to 2% so important?
Now I'm going to pause there because I didn't realize this. Like I said, I went through and looked at, because I was trying to find this exact clip, and looked at a bunch of other FOMC meetings and transcripts, and you will not believe how many times he is hammering home this narrative of 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. Like I did a search for just 2%, and it's just like every other sentence is that's what's so important, and that's what they're focusing on, and that's just so many things about that. And again, she asked him, why is that 2% so important? And here's his answer.
So that has become the globally agreed, essentially all major central banks target 2% inflation in one form or another.
How does that help my Nevada families? How does that help people in Nevada?
I'll tell you how it does. And it's I guess it's.
So first of all, it's the globally agreed upon rate. Let that sink in. Central banks all over the world have come together, and this is the creature from Jekyll Isle, basically, that they got together and they created a system where they're like, what's the minimum amount of money we can steal from people and get away with? 2%. That sounds good. 2%. That's the globally agreed upon rate. I didn't agree to this. You didn't agree to this. We didn't vote on this. These central banks are neither like the Federal Reserve, neither federal nor does it have any reserves, as the saying goes, right? So they're just a banking cartel that is controlling the ebb and flow of money. But like he said, it was globally agreed upon by all banks. That's the rate they want to push towards.
It's obviously not. It's not obvious how that is, but what a 2% inflation, to have people believe that inflation is going to go back to 2% really anchors inflation there, because the evidence is and the modern belief is that people's expectations about inflation actually have an effect on inflation. If you expect inflation to go up 5%, then it will. If everyone kind of expects that, because that's what businesses and households will be expecting, and it will kind of happen because they expect it. So
let me pause that in case you missed that. Having a 2% inflation rate as the goal anchors that goal in people's mind, and the belief will drive it there. Not why is it good for you, or how did it get put there in the first place, or who voted for it. It's just that, hey, 2% is better than 5, right? So just believe it and it will come true, and that's better for you because it's not higher. The belief is what creates the narrative, and the narrative becomes our reality.
A 2% inflation goal, which we had for many years. De facto, we had it, then we formally adopted it in 2012. But for years before that, we were effectively targeting 2% inflation. And what that meant was that inflation, one of the reasons why inflation was low and predictable, is having a real target and sticking to it, not changing it, at convenient moments. So we think it's really important that we do stick to a 2% inflation target and not consider changing it. We're not going to do that. It just is. People will be better off if the whole question of high inflation is just not part of their lives. That's kind of the definition of price stability, is if people live their lives without having to think about inflation all the time.
Thank you.
So people will be better off as long as high inflation is not part of their mind. So again, they agreed upon 2% globally. So that's okay because it's not high. And as long as they don't change it, then they can slowly steal your money away from you. And I actually want to show you the math on this. So here is what 2% looks like on a $100 item. And all this is taking $100 times 2% each year. And it is slowly just stealing your buying power, because by the time you get to year 21, you have lost 50% of your buying power. That may not sound like a lot, but when the average person lives, 70 to 80 years, it would go up higher, but in the first 20 years of your life, you have already lost 50% of your buying power, and your wages do not go up the same. And this is the target. Remember, this has nothing to do with the actual true inflation rate, like the actual real rate that we're seeing. And in some places, it could be like 5%. Well, in a matter of 8.5 years, you've lost 50% of your buying power. So depending on where you live, this could be anywhere from 20 if you're lucky on the globally agreed, or hell, 4.5. 4.5 to 10 years. No matter what, any inflation rate outside of 0 is theft. Like, why do we have to have a 2% interest rate? She didn't answer that question that she asked. Like, she asked him, why is that the rate? Or why is that a good thing for the Nevada residents, I think is what she said.
Well anchored. For the general public, for those working families and people, why 2%? Why is getting it to 2% so important?
Yeah. Why is that so important? Because it's not 5. That's the reason. Because if we believe it to be true, then we can all get it there by just believing. And that's better than, like I said, 5%, 7%, 3%, 10%, whatever, right? Stealing a little bit of money every year is a lot better than stealing a lot. And that's exactly what Jeff Booth echoed in here. Like, you have to accept that theft is the only way for this to operate. And that's why this is so hard to wrap your head around. Like, Jeff Booth, again, man, shouts out to him, because he just drops these simple proofs, these knowledge bombs that if you really sit back and listen and digest what he's saying, it will make you think, and you have no choice but to unplug from the matrix. I hope you have no choice but to unplug. Like, I feel kind of like Jack Mahler's ranting in his closet. It's like, you guys need to wake up, because there is no other way to explain it to you besides just beating the same principles in your head over and over and over again. And maybe I'm doing it for myself, so that I stay orange pilled and, you know, not get caught up in chasing the fiat dollar value go up system. But once you see this, you can't unsee it. And man, I just feel super, super bad for the bulk of the globe that have no idea. Like, I myself, I can just speak for myself, live with these blinders on for the last 30 plus years. And I'm just now finding out about this. It's like, damn, what about the ones that will go another 30 years from now and still not find out about it? Or the ones that are watching this and they're not convinced. They still believe Bitcoin's a scam, or it's whatever the narrative is that the news is feeding them. It's like, wow, they have done such a great job of hiding the truth that, you know, again, you watch these things and you're like, hey, that's great, man. Yeah, 2% is way better than what we had, and I'm all for Jerome Powell. Yeah, do it. So it's like, I don't even know how to explain it, but they're showing you their hand, they're showing the cards, showing you the playbook, they're letting you know what they're doing. And if you just run the numbers, do the math yourself, you can see how you're getting robbed. But most people will still opt for the controlled, slow degradation of their economic wealth and financial energy, because it's what they're used to. It's sad. All right, that's all I got. Smash that HBO special, help brother out, like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, live daily and achieve your impossible. See ya.